Hi, everyone. I'm Cullen Haynes, and this is Law Live. It is Wednesday, the 21st of September, and I have a very, very special guest in the house for you that I'm about to bring on. Current editor at the Lawyers Weekly Momentum Media, absolute powerhouse lawyer in his own right as well, and author, wrote The Wellness Doctrines, which is a phenomenal bestseller all about mental health. Would you please make very welcome and have your questions ready, because this is live, for Jerome Doraisamy. Jerome, good to see you, sir, and welcome to Law Live, mon ami.
Good to see you, Cullen, and thanks very much for having me. It's nice to be on the other side of the table for an interview like this. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. And for all those who don't know, but I doubt you don't know Jerome, an absolute powerhouse of content at the Lawyers Weekly, and is often on the other side interviewing leading lawyers and people in the profession. So it is very good to have you on this side. And I'd love to ask you, what is happening in your circle of influence there, Jerome? What's going on?
Oh, well, I mean, I'd actually like to answer this on a more personal level because that's what's kind of consuming my thought process right now. So I got engaged about 6 days
Congrats.
ago. Just came back from Tasmania where myself and my now fiance, had a little holiday, and yeah, I proposed to her on the 2-year anniversary of our dating. So I'm feeling on top of the world right now. And have sort of come back into the office this week and have, whilst of course there's been a lot to catch up on, I have felt pretty comfortable about it all. Certain things that might have stressed me even just 2 weeks ago suddenly don't seem, I don't want to say as important, but they're certainly not as stressful as perhaps they might have been in the past. And I've realized that there are more important things in life to worry about, and so why let the little things bother you when there are obvious solutions and strategies to manage those. So yeah, look, getting engaged has provided a nice little life lesson on top of being a really lovely rite of passage for me personally, and yeah, I'm very excited for everything that's to come in the near future and in the long-term future.
Oh, you got some good things ahead of you. I love seeing good things happen to good people, Jerome. And any tips you'd say for anyone looking to propose or make that next step that you found very helpful on your 2-year mark?
Well, I would probably say be cognizant of your partner and their needs, his or her needs. My own partner, Stephanie, she always wanted to be more collaborative about a potential or hypothetical engagement and proposal. Didn't want to be surprised by it. So I actually flagged my intentions with her about 6 months ago, and we designed the ring together. She didn't know what the final product looked like, but certainly had input into the design and what kind of stones would be involved in that. But I think that made it certainly made it unique for us, but also sort of special in that I knew that she was being brought along for the journey. So yeah, be mindful of who your partner is and what they might want. Would be my advice to any lawyers who are thinking about proposing to their partners.
I think that very cogent insights you're making there, Jerome. I think the title of this will be collaborative engagement. A new buzzword I think we're going to put out into the zeitgeist there. And I would encourage anyone watching. It is 1:20 or almost 1:20 on the 21st. We're streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Put your questions in and we will bring them up and shout them out to Jerome. But on that idea of content, because you're very prolific as editor at the Lawyers Weekly, how do you fit so much into your day, talk to so many people, and come up with so many, I guess, content ideas in the law world?
Well, it's not easy. I'll start off by saying, there's a million and one things happening every day in the legal profession, and it's hard to have fingers in every single pie. But we do our best. We've got a great team of 3, hopefully soon 4, who all have their various interests and various niches within the legal profession. And so between us, we all do a reasonable job, I think, of trying to stay on top of everything that's happening. A lot of the time, we do actually get lawyers or law firms, in-house legal teams reaching out to us to point out what's happening on the ground, which we find is really helpful, obviously, because none of us are currently practicing lawyers, and so we're not fully aware of what's happening day to day in the profession. So it is really important for the profession to be reaching out to us proactively to say, hey, we're noticing XYZ trend or issue or challenge or opportunity for lawyers right now. And so, to that end, I would encourage anyone watching this to proactively reach out to me. If you don't ask, you don't get. And, if there's something important happening in the profession that others should know about, then let us know. Other times, we're trying to stay on top, as on top of things as we possibly can, not just in the legal profession, but in mainstream media as well. To see, what is happening across the marketplace, across Australian society. And so, and there are certain things, for example, most recently with quiet quitting, that's a trend that started.
That took the world by storm, that article.
Yeah, well, it really did, and so we saw this trend happening in mainstream circles and in social media, and we thought, well, how can we apply this to the legal profession? And as you say, Cullen, that article that we ended up publishing and subsequent stories as well have gone gangbusters on the site. So it's really important for us as legal journalists to be aware of what's happening in the world around us, not just in the profession, and seeing how best we can link that to what's happening for lawyers on the ground.
I love that. And on that note of quiet quitting, because people have a misconception of what it is, they just glazed over the article. What is quiet quitting?
So quiet quitting is a bit of a pushback on the idea of hustling, of buying into the idea that you have to go above and beyond, certainly in terms of hours worked, relative to what you're contracted to do. It's a mindset whereby you will just do what's required of you in the sort of, let's say, the Monday to Friday 9 to 5. And you said there's a misconception there at the moment, and I agree, there really is, that quiet quitting is essentially being lazy, or that you're not dedicated or you're not loyal. And I think that's a really unfair way to describe it. I don't think that it's reasonable to expect that people will go above and beyond what is required of them contractually, especially if they're not being remunerated for that. And whether or not people agree that it's a good thing or not, I think they do have to realize that it's an inevitable trend in law, that lawyers coming through the ranks, or even some at the senior level, are going to be pushing back on this idea that you have to grind, for until midnight every night. If a client asks something of you at the 11th hour and it has to be done by the following morning, I don't think that's something that lawyers are going to want to put up with for too much longer if they're seeing what's happening in the world around them. I did a podcast with Finn Bowd recently that you might have heard, Cullen.
I'm a good fan of Finn. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she really is. And she made what I thought was a fantastic analogy, which was that there's a lot that lawyers can learn from tradies. If you ask a tradie to come in and fix the plumbing in your toilet, or if you're trying to get a construction company to build a house, they're not going to turn it around overnight just because you ask them to. They're going to say, all right, well, I'll come to your house next week and fix your toilet, or the house will be built in 6 months. And tradies will leave the site at 3 p.m. every day on the dot because that's what works for them. And we all have to fit around their schedule. So why shouldn't the legal profession be the same? Why shouldn't we set more reasonable, more manageable deadlines with our clients to say, all right, you've got an acquisition, we'll get to that in a few weeks. We're not going to get to it by the end of this week. So yeah, I agree with Finn that there's a lot that lawyers can learn from tradies about quiet quitting and just more generally about their practice management and their wellness.
Oh, very good. I think there's something in that. Well done, Finn. Shout out to Finn there. And I'm sure there's some tradies that are now lawyers that are going to be reaching out to you to do some future articles there, Jerome. So any any tradie lawyers watching, please get in touch. But on that note of mental health, because it is a big, I guess, topic, not only in law, in finance, in every industry really, is, how much should we be expecting of our people, and how much of it is, just toughen up, tough love, as opposed to actually caring about your staff, not just ticking a box and having a mental health breakfast at 6 a.m., actually caring about it. You wrote a book called The Wellness Doctrine, shining a light on mental health in the workplace. Is that still important to you? And what's your view in the market now, especially law?
Yeah, well, to answer that separately, it absolutely still is a very important topic, close to my heart. It has been almost 10 years since I was hospitalized for my own bouts of anxiety and depression, which is a pretty interesting thing for me to reflect on personally, how far I've come and also how removed I feel from that time in my life, which is, a really lovely thing to reflect on. But of course, I'm still very cognizant that health and well-being is not a linear process. We all have our days, we all have our moments, and it's really critically important that we remain vigilant about looking after ourselves and those around us. We have to be proactive rather than reactive about it. In answer to the other part of your question, look, I think broadly speaking, that the legal profession has made leaps and bounds in this space in the last 10 to 15 years in order to not only raise awareness of the issues, but also identify practical solutions and strategies to it. I think that lawyers, as a broad proposition, feel much more comfortable in today's age speaking about any issues they may be having pertaining to psychological distress, anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, as compared to earlier in this century. But I think there are still a number of gaps that need to be addressed. I don't think that young lawyers feel as comfortable as some of the older ones might do, because they may feel like they don't have enough runs on the board in order to speak up, because they don't want to hinder their career progression or any chance of a pay rise. Whereas if you're a partner in a law firm, you're a business owner, you've established yourself, no one's going to fire you for that. But a lot of junior lawyers may feel that could be the case if they speak up. So I think we need to constantly be thinking about how best we can ensure that the next generation of lawyers coming through the ranks, the emerging leaders in the profession, we need to ensure that they feel comfortable speaking up, that there are safe spaces for them, and that it's known that your career is not going to be hindered if you do identify, an issue that you're having. If anything, it should be seen as a strength that you have the insight and the perspective to be able to recognize that you may be suffering, and that you're able to take steps to address that. I think it should be seen as a strength rather than a weakness.
I love that, and it's empowering people to know the difference and actually speak up when that's happening. In terms of what you're seeing, I guess the good law firms, and you and I both know the good law firms that are taking steps. Is there any common trends that you're noticing those firms putting in place for their staff that is working, that you're getting boots on the ground feedback? Hey, this is a great place to work and a great culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, there are a number of firms and a number of in-house departments that are doing this very well. But I think, sort of as a sort of general statement, I think the firms or the legal employers, shall I say, that are doing the best in this space are those that are looking for new and creative ways to be as accommodating for the idiosyncrasies of each individual as they possibly can be. I think that a good employer in law right now is one that is recognizing that the genie's out of the bottle post-pandemic. There's no going back to pre-pandemic working conditions. And that means not only that people aren't going to be coming into the office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, that also means that they're going to be wanting and demanding working conditions that are unlike what they will have experienced pre-2020. And if you are proactively making those accommodations, catering to those idiosyncrasies, ensuring that people feel as catered to as possible, then I think you've got the best chance of retaining the top talent, and also instilling a lot more institutional loyalty. There's certainly a number of examples of where firms are doing well on this front, but I would say as one example, the addition of these much more generous paid parental leave schemes, genderless schemes that have all the necessary trimmings, like provisions for stillbirth and miscarriage, IVF treatment. There's one award-winning new law firm that has what they're calling paternity leave. If your pet passes away, that you have compassionate leave, for that instance.
Oh wow.
I think these creative workplace provisions and entitlements that firms are looking at are really important. And they might seem completely out of the ordinary to what it might have been the case a couple of years ago. But if you want to retain the top talent, you've got to be thinking outside the box.
Absolutely. And on the darker side, there are paid leave for domestic violence on both sides, the complainant and the person who is offending, which I found quite jarring when I heard it, but I thought it's good that that's in place at some of the firms as well. So I think firms are evolving in terms of what's happening. On the other side, though, do you think with graduates and those lawyers that are moving, that are expecting sign-on bonuses and 6-month bonuses and 6-figure income starting in law, are we breeding the next generation to be entitled, do you think, Jerome? Playing devil's advocate, which I know you and I play quite often.
Yeah, that was a really interesting question, and one that I was actually talking to my boss about this morning. There's definitely a balance to be struck, I would say, first and foremost. I think it is reasonable for team leaders, for partners, for managers, for general counsel to expect certain things from their employees coming through the ranks, that they're not just going to be taking the piss. Really leveraging as many of those entitlements and provisions as they possibly can. I think that those coming through the ranks absolutely have to meet their employers halfway. You absolutely need to not only tick the boxes of the work you need to be doing day to day, but I think there is a certain commitment that needs to be shown, whether it's, an emotional, psychological one, whatever you want to call it. I think that it's reasonable for team leaders to expect and demand that their team members will show dedication to the cause, because I think that will really help breed and maintain a good workplace culture, a good team camaraderie, and unity. And if somebody is not doing that, then I think it's fair enough for certain questions to be asked, of that person, and whether or not they fit within that team. I think it's an evolving and fluid conversation as to what can and should reasonably be demanded, and what should be expected from the other side. But I think the point about potential entitlement for those coming through the ranks is a fair one to ask, and it's certainly one that team leaders need to be cognizant of. But simultaneously, they also need to be effectively communicating what they need from those coming through the ranks. And if they're not doing that, then it's perhaps understandable why some people may look to take the piss a little bit.
No, it makes sense. And I think for anyone watching, this is not an attack on if you deserve it. That's fair enough. But I think not just because everyone else is getting it isn't an automatic hall pass to get that. So yeah, I think it's something to be cognizant of. Some great points you make, Jerome. But on that note of extracurricular activities and having the passion to do things outside your role, are there any passion projects either outside of work or at work that are very close to your heart at the moment that you're working on?
Yeah, well, certainly within the workplace, I lead the wellness advocacy group for Lawyers Weekly's parent company, Momentum Media. Which, for those of you who don't know, Momentum is a publishing house across all professional services. We own
Correct.
24 mastheads across accounting, tax, real estate, defense, space, mortgage broking, aviation. And Lawyers Weekly is just one of those mastheads. And so for our company of 150 people, I run the wellness group, and we've been looking to revamp a lot of our workplace policies, and with wellness being front of mind, of course, and catering to all the needs of individuals. And that's been a really nice thing for me to do, to use my legal hat and draft entirely new policies for our workplace. I'm really enjoying that. But also, outside of work, it's obviously important to maintain some of the other passion projects. So I always get asked, have I got a third book in mind? I do, but I don't have the bandwidth or the physical energy to write a third book right now. So I'm really dedicated and keen to ensure that I keep up, with all my daily, weekly hobbies. I'm an avid a consumer of podcasts, mostly news and politics, but also true crime. Try to finish reading a book every fortnight, although I don't always get there. I cook and bake a lot, especially because Steph, my fiance, isn't as keen on cooking and baking.
Shout out to Steph. We love you just the way you are.
Yeah, exactly. And I also play mixed netball and soccer every week with old school friends. It's just so critically important for me to keep up those passions and those hobbies, because without it, I'd otherwise just be so tuned into what's happening with Lawyers Weekly every single day. And frankly, it's just not a healthy way to live. We've got to have your opportunities to switch off, literally and metaphorically. And So, I make sure that I make time rather than find time for the things in my life that I'm passionate about and get me out of bed in the morning.
No, I think that's fantastic. Would a great segue. Would you like to see that element change in law, or if there was one thing you'd like to see change, what would you like to see it be in the law space?
Ooh, well, it's hard to identify just one. I think
Of course.
given my background both personally and professionally, I would like to see law be a leader in the wellness conversation across all sectors and industries in Australia. For too long, law has been has produced among the highest, if not the highest, rates of psychological distress and suicide. I think we overtook dentistry a little while back for the highest rates of suicide ideation, and I think we need to flip the script. If law can become a leader in this space, if we can have among the lowest rates of psychological distress, anxiety, depression, disordered eating, suicide ideation of any profession in Australia, that's where I would like to see us be. And certainly, as a board director of the Minds Count Foundation,
Yes.
previously,
Tristan Jepson, right?
yeah, previously the Jepson Foundation. That is a real goal of mine.
Amazing. Yeah, obviously, it's still active, so people can get onto Mindscout. Is it mindscout.com.au? What's the best website to get onto that, Jerome?
Yeah. Just Google Minds Count, and it'll be the first link that comes up. We will. I think I'm allowed to say this. We will soon be launching the details of our 2022 annual lecture. So look out for that, and make sure. Certainly, if you're Sydney based, that you get a ticket. And if you're not Sydney based, make sure that you can watch the lecture at a later date.
I'm looking forward to that, and I guess the story behind the Tristan Jepson Foundation is harrowing. I think it's the story of the true story of a comedian and a lawyer who I guess succumbed to mental health issues, and that's in his honor, which is now Mindscount, and I think it's a fantastic initiative.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, and hopefully, we can continue to honor the legacy, not just of Tristan, but of his parents and the great work that they have done. In the last 15 years to draw awareness to this issue and really enforce change in the profession.
Love that. And another great segue, if there's something you could part to young lawyers and journalists watching, maybe it's two parts or it could be both if they are both. What would that be? What would be a lesson you'd like to impart?
Well, I'll say this not just to young lawyers or journalists, but to all professionals really watching this, certainly all legal professionals, is to remember that you're a person first, and everything else comes second. Because if you're not a healthy, happy individual, you can't possibly be a productive, successful professional. One can't exist without the other. That's a lesson that I learned from Mari Jepson, actually, Tristan's mother. And it really holds true. No matter who you are, no matter what your job is, if you're not taking the time to look after yourself first and foremost, then nothing else can flow from that. So be selfish. Is the lesson I would look to impart. Make sure you're making time rather than finding time to be proactive about your health and well-being, as opposed to being reactive about it. It's so fundamentally important that you take the time take the time for self-care. And if nothing else, if you do take the time to do that, then you'll have more fun day to day. And I think as lawyers, we could all
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Exactly. Do lawyers have fun, Jerome? Is that true?
Well, they bloody well should if they don't.
Any lawyers watching, and there are a few, I'm looking at the stream, please have some fun. Take your profession seriously, but don't take yourself seriously, I think someone once said. I think it's very well said too. And I love what you're saying about be selfish. I think Jim Rohn once said, you look after you for me, and I'll look after me for you. And that's why on a plane they say put your own mask on first. Very good points. I guess the final question before we tune off and get into bonus questions: when all is said and done, Jerome, at the end of your long and luminous life and career, how would you like to be remembered?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one, and I'm actually not certain that there's anything professionally that I would necessarily want to be remembered for. I mean, certainly I'll be happy if I am remembered in a professional sense. That would be lovely. Yes. But I don't think I don't think I would regret not being remembered in the workplace setting. I think that what's more important to me is how I'm remembered on a personal level. I would really like to think that people would come away from meeting me, or from from engaging with me, from having any kind of relationship, personal or professional, that they would think of me as a sort of kind, generous, compassionate individual, empathetic one as well. I think that's what's most important to me. I'm not sure that I achieve or maintain those traits every single day of my life. I certainly try to. And so, I think that's what's most important to me, that I'm remembered as a kind person.
A kind person. You and Peppy Kish are two peas in a pod. You're both kind people. You yourself, sir, are a gem, and both the law journal world are very, very lucky to have you. And I really appreciate bringing you onto Law Live in your time.
Oh, it's so nice to be here, Cullen. I really appreciate you having me.
My pleasure. And before we finish, I guess, the official version of the Law Live, where can people find you if they want to talk about articles or talk about mental health or grab a coffee? Where are you hanging out most?
So I'm based in Sydney. So if you are Sydney based as a lawyer, please feel free to reach out, to catch up for a coffee. Hit me up at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au, or you can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, all of that. And yeah, look, I mean, but if you're in a state, please just reach out. As I said earlier in this conversation, if you don't ask, you don't get. And if there's something you want to see on Lawyers Weekly, or if there's a conversation you want to be having, then we want to hear from you. Like I said, we're not practicing lawyers ourselves, or at least I'm not anymore.
No.
And so we're not fully aware of what's happening on the ground day to day, and so we rely on lawyers to let us know about some things. I like to think of Lawyers Weekly as by the profession and for the profession. Please engage, please collaborate. We want to hear from you.
Fantastic. And it seems that you're hanging out everywhere where everyone is, like Instagram, LinkedIn, editor. Please reach out to Jerome. And thanks again, Jerome. Good man.
Cheers, Cullen. Appreciate it.
And all those watching, that has been the Law Live for today. Please tune in every Wednesday on Wednesdays, and we'll upload this episode with Jerome to wherever you get your podcasts. Bye for now, everyone. Jerome, I'm bringing you back for some bonus questions, my friend. Explaining your role to a 6-year-old, how would you do that?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because I'm not a parent myself, so I don't know exactly how much they might know about the law, what a lawyer is, what the rule of law is. So I suppose what I would say is that I write and speak for a living. That's my job. I seem to spend a lot of my day, if not writing, then speaking to people. And in both of those things that I've just outlined there, I've got headphones on. So maybe what I'd say to a 6-year-old is I spend a lot of my day with headphones on. Either it's doing a podcast, or it's tuning out everybody around me and listening to some classical music while I type up a story. So yeah, I spend my day with headphones in.
Oh, what's your favorite classical piece of music for anyone watching?
Oh, I'd say The Four Seasons by Vivaldi.
Vivaldi.
Yeah, but I do really enjoy Max Richter's recomposition of it, which I actually saw at the opera a couple of weeks ago with Steph.
Yes. Was that good? Well, that was good. I saw Ellen Allow on LinkedIn say that she saw it as well. It looked like a wonderful event.
It was absolutely breathtaking, and especially in the new concert hall in the Sydney Opera House. The acoustics couldn't have been better, and the lead violinist, just everything about it was amazing. Actually, and that's probably a good point to make as well. Classical music is a fantastic way to de-stress, to detach and unwind from the rigors of law.
I agree. And Max Richter's Sleep, I think you can get it on Spotify and music. Apple, get onto that. It's a great. I've gone to sleep many a time to Max Richter's Sleep. So well done. Great shout out there. And the final bonus question, and this is because I am a physics major. This is one getting into the quantum realm. If you could give yourself advice at any age, what advice would that be? And what age would you go back in time and give that advice?
Ooh. I'm probably going to say my early 20s, because that's when I had the onset of my anxiety and depression, and near suicide ideation. Didn't quite get to that point, but certainly was a shade or two off it. I would say that self-kindness is really important. Self-compassion. Don't be so hard on yourself. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to fall sometimes, and that's okay. You don't have to be number one at every single thing that you do. In fact, it's not possible to be the best at every single thing you turn your mind to. So being okay with not always being okay. Obviously that's a very important idea. But being okay with failure. There are a lot of important lessons to learn from failure. Because I think that understanding those lowest of lows really helps you achieve the highest of highs. It gives you the perspective you need in order to move forward in life. So yeah, be kind and allow yourself to falter at times. Obviously, we don't want to, and it's not pleasant, but it's okay if you do.
It's okay to hear the crash of the cymbals so you can experience those high notes. I think that's a great point, and I think a lot to walk away with from our chat, Jerome. And thank you again for your time, my friend. Bringing you back. Thanks again there, Jerome. It dropped you out too early. Were you saying something there?
No, I just said it's always lovely to see you and looking forward to doing it again.
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Jerome. Bye, everyone. Have a great Wednesday.